Hello again. Annalise Dodds, the chair of the Labour Party, said a few days ago that immigration would rise in the short term under Labour. The current Prime Minister refuses to rule out an increase in the number of immigrants, while the Chancellor of the Exchequer says we must be pragmatic about it and that he thinks there should be more immigration as well. The truth is, both the main political parties in this country are determined to import even more foreigners. This poses a difficulty for those of us who would like to see immigration go down. Which of the parties should we vote for? It's a tricky dilemma, which really means trying to guess which will increase immigration the least. Personally, I doubt there's much in it. This inevitably leads us to ask, is there any alternative, any realistic chance that voting for another party might do any good? Sadly, history teaches us that this is very unlikely. Back in the 1970s, there was a vigorous new political party which garnered a good deal of support from those who were opposed to immigration. The National Front was formed in early 1967 by members of the League of Empire Loyalists, the British National Party, and a few people from the Racial Preservation Society. The party was, for a few years at least, pretty successful. Although they didn't win any parliamentary seats, either at by-elections or in general elections, they managed to get 10% at one by-election, and in 1974 they got just over 3% of the votes in the first general election held that year. They became far and away the most successful right-wing party since Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists. Like the BUF, though, nobody ever voted any of their candidates into Parliament. The National Front were explicitly opposed to immigration, and this was the chief platform upon which they fought elections. I mention this because there are, of course, a number of fringe parties at the moment who are opposed to immigration, but none of them are even remotely as popular as the National Front was in the 1970s. It leads me to suppose that there's no point in placing any hope in them when it comes to elections, whether parliamentary or local. This leads us naturally to ask what can be done. Canvassing MPs is one thing, of course, and then too there is organising protests and demonstrations. All this has been tried and is currently being undertaken, with little sign that our leaders are taking any notice or are likely to change course. There is, of course, direct action, but we're not living in Weimar Germany, and I doubt if anything of that kind would cause more than a little ripple. All that remains is a very depressing possibility, which is simply that what we are seeing is a societal collapse as a long established civilization slips into irreversible decline. History provides us with many examples of this happening, and if we can be sure of anything, it is that no culture flourishes and lasts forever. Where is Rome now, or for that matter, the Aztecs, the Indus Valley civilization, Renaissance Italy, or the Ottoman Empire? All had their season and then passed into obscurity. Perhaps that is the fate which we in the West are now seeing, and we're about to be eclipsed by a rising force such as China. I am reminded of a poem by Padre Pierce, one of the leaders of the Easter Rising in 1916, for which he was executed. He wrote a poem which might very well be germane to these days in which we now live. There was once, of course, a mighty kingdom in Ireland which was centred around Tara. Here is the poem. The world hath conquered, the wind hath scattered like dust, Alexander, Caesar, and all that shared their sway. Tara is grass, and behold how Troy lieth low, and even the English, perchance their hour will come,